The Corvani delegation stood in the United Nations General Assembly Hall, their crystalline forms refracting the light into prismatic rainbows across the polished floor. Their leader, a towering being of living diamond known as High Crystallarch, Zethmor, spoke in harmonics that the translation devices barely managed to convert into human speech. Your species has 24 of your rotational cycles to comply, Zethmor announced, his voice resonating like wind chimes in a hurricane. We require 90% of your planet's water reserves, 70% of your metallic ores, and 60% of your organic carbon compounds. In exchange, we will allow your species to continue existing under our protection. The assembled delegates sat in stunned silence. Some shifted nervously in their seats. Others whispered urgently to their advisors, but Secretary General Maria Santos remained perfectly still, her dark eyes studying the alien beings with the calculating gaze of someone who had spent decades negotiating with the world's most dangerous leaders. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief xenobiologist, leaned toward her colleague, Dr. James Chen. They're silicon-based, she whispered. Look at their structure. They literally feed on minerals and crystalline formations. They probably see our planet as a buffet. Chen nodded grimly. The Corvani Empire spans 12 systems according to their transmissions. They've done this before. High Crystallarch Zethmor continued his ultimatum, oblivious to the quiet conversations. Your resistance would be inadvisable. We have observed your technological capabilities. Your weapons are primitive. Your space travel is limited to your immediate stellar vicinity. Accept our generous terms and your species may survive to serve a greater purpose. Secretary General Santos stood slowly, her movement drawing the attention of every being in the hall. At 58, she had weathered countless international crises, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. She walked to the podium with measured steps, her hands steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to say. High Crystallarch Zethmor, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I appreciate your generous offer. However, I'm afraid there's something you should understand about humanity before we proceed. The crystalline being's form shifted slightly, light patterns dancing across his surface in what their xenolinguists had identified as curiosity, mixed with amusement. We are indeed a young species, Santos continued. We've only just reached beyond our own world. Our technology may seem primitive to your advanced civilization, but there's one thing about humans that I think you've overlooked in your calculations. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the alien delegation before returning to Zethmor. We don't give up. Ever. It's not in our nature. When faced with impossible odds, we don't surrender. We adapt. We innovate. We fight. A low harmonic rumble emanated from the Corvani delegation, their equivalent of dismissive laughter. Your spirit is admirable, Zethmor replied, but spirit cannot overcome physics. Our ships are shielded against your nuclear weapons. Our technology is millennia beyond yours. Your resistance would last mere moments. Santos smiled then, an expression that those who knew her recognized as particularly dangerous. Dr. Chen, she called to the physicist, would you please explain to our guests what humanity discovered when we started experimenting with controlled stellar fusion? Dr. Chen approached the podium, his tablet already displaying complex equations and energy readings. Certainly, Madam Secretary General. You see, High Crystallarch, when we were developing our fusion technology, we discovered something interesting about silicon-based crystalline structures when exposed to specific wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. The light patterns across Zethmor's surface flickered with what appeared to be confusion. Chen continued, it turns out that when subjected to precisely modulated plasma fields, the kind we generate in our fusion reactors, silicon crystal matrices experience catastrophic resonance failure. Essentially, they shatter at the molecular level. Impossible. Zethmor's harmonic voice carried a note of uncertainty. Our shields are designed to deflect kinetic weapons and electromagnetic pulses, Santos interrupted, not to filter specific fusion radiation signatures that resonate with your biological frequency. Dr. Vasquez spent the last 3 hours analyzing your crystalline structure while you delivered your ultimatum. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, Every word you spoke, every movement you made, gave us more data about your molecular composition. We know exactly which frequency will cause your crystalline matrices to collapse. The Corvani delegation began to exhibit agitated light patterns, their harmonics rising in pitch. "You wouldn't dare," Zethmore said, though his voice had lost its commanding presence. "Such an attack would be suicide. We have ships positioned throughout your system." Santos nodded calmly. "That's true. But here's what you don't understand about humans. When our survival is at stake, we'll burn everything to the ground rather than surrender. Every fusion reactor on Earth has been modified in the last 4 hours. Every nuclear submarine, every research facility, every power plant. If you fire a single shot at our planet, we'll turn them all into weapons and paint your entire fleet across the cosmos." The crystalline beings began to vibrate with what could only be described as fear. "Moreover," Santos continued, "we've already transmitted the resonance frequency data to every human colony, mining station, and deep space probe. Your empire's location, your ship designs, your biological weaknesses, all of it is now spreading across human space. We may be primitive, but we learn fast, and we never forget a threat." The silence in the assembly hall stretched for long moments, broken only by the increasingly frantic harmonic exchanges between the Corvani delegation members. Finally, Zethmore spoke, his voice barely audible through the translation system. What do you want?" Santos's smile widened. "Nothing from you. We want you to leave. Now. Spread the word to your empire that Earth is off limits. Tell them that humans have a saying, 'Don't poke the bear.' Consider this your education on what happens when you poke us." The Corvani delegation began moving toward the exit, their crystalline forms dimming noticeably. "And High Crystal Arc?" Santos called after them. Zethmore paused without turning. "If we ever see your ships in our system again, we won't bother with warnings. We'll simply remind you why humans became the apex predators of their homeworld, despite being small, weak, and technologically inferior to everything that wanted to kill them." As the aliens departed, Dr. Chen approached Santos. "Madam Secretary General, that was brilliant, but I have to ask, did we actually modify all those reactors?" Santos chuckled, watching the alien ships disappear into the depths of space through the assembly hall's massive windows. "Dr. Chen, the first rule of negotiation is never let them see your cards. The second rule is that sometimes the best weapon is the one you never have to use." She turned to address the assembly, her voice carrying across the hall filled with humanity's representatives. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've just learned something important about our place in the universe. We may not be the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced species out there, but we are the ones who figured out how to harness the power of stars, and sometimes that's enough." The standing ovation lasted for 5 full minutes,